not about fixing things that are broken or solving problems that need to be solved. That's the way we live today, talking. It requires a different kind of talking. It starts with beauty. Because we know the mind cannot understand beauty, only the heart can understand it.
Y recuerdo que se sumergía. Le decía yo, ¿a qué hora vas a respirar? Decía, es que nomás quisieras que viera abajo, lo bonito que está, lo hermoso que se ve, la almeja, la lamita, en el zacatito, la conchita. Y yo dije, algún día voy a bajar también a ver ese que, al hermoso que decía mi papá que está ahí abajo. Y después del tiempo, el niño ese ya creció. Fui a revisar esas partes tan bonitas que estaban. Y resulta que ya no lo encontré tan lindo. Para dar tristeza, sinceramente. Yo tenía en mi mente, en mi corazón, volver a ver eso hermoso que estaba allá. Y después de 2 años atrás, hasta hoy, vuelvo a ver eso bonito, eso hermoso, esa almeja allá adentro y esa recuperación de ese callo hermoso.
As I have been working at NOS, mainly with the fishermen, with Hubert and Guillermo, that they have really been my mentors. Sometimes in the daily basis, it's hard to think that vision can be enough. After you let and try to make these spaces for feelings and for conversations and for deep reflections appear, the vision is enough. It's enough for them, so it should be enough for us, and it's so powerful.
One of the challenges that groups like NAS face in working with a local community as powerful as the one here in the Sea of Cortez, or series of communities, is that the challenge is really to see that we're all in the same boat together, literally. The plants, the animals, the human communities, we all have the same challenge, how to live together in a way that can be sustained over a very long period of time.
It's not about myself, it's about everybody. What is the best for the vision? And they're very, very blessed. And to have the chance of being part of this change that is not here in the Manguito, but wider and wider.
It's about becoming re-enchanted with a profound beauty. It's all around. But we have to have eyes to see.
Much more rewarding and nurturing to work with people who actually do the work and to help actually do the work. And what I'm experiencing and seeing is this is the real thing. Day-to-day, impacting people's lives, dealing with really challenging issues, social issues, environmental issues, personality issues, but this is where it happens. So for me, it's a real privilege to get this close. And it's something we want to sustain. Otherwise, the work I do, we're working with people who work with people who work with people.
All this one group of equal people trying to figure out what's going on together to the best of our ability. But I think the most important thing, though, is how we each have the capacity to be a healing place. Whether that's just me as a healing place, or whether it's creating a healing space, or whether it's an interaction that's healing. And it feels to me that, I don't know, I guess it's so exciting. I think the ripple effect of everything we do is really confined in one word that's called kindness, just being kind. And how important it is to be kind to each other, how important it is to be kind to the planet, how, reverent to the food that we eat.
And in NOS in particular, having worked with them now over a 4-year period, we can see in them how they've grown at an individual level, how they've grown as a team, how they've affected and impacted positively the work of the community and the fishermen. And I think one of the most brilliant and certainly personal transformational experiences that we've had is in March in the Nature Quest on Espiritu Santo, and that wasn't just a 3-day event, that is something that continues to grow within us, again, at the individual level, and the experience that we've all had together.
So I have known the NOS organization now for 4 years, and I've watched them grow and develop. Wonderful group of people, and they're a great example in the world of scientists, it was mostly marine biologists, who are really learning how to work with the community. Because the people who will restore fisheries are fishermen, the fishing community. And one of the big problems in the world is you have all these scientists who have all this analysis and understanding of what's needed, but oftentimes they're not very good at getting things to ever change. And the government's very important, and people who buy the fish, the businesses are very important. But ultimately, the people who are right in the middle of everything are the fishing communities. And when a fishery really deteriorates, there's huge suffering. There's economic suffering, there's social suffering, the whole culture of a community deteriorates. But what's been really interesting for me is to watch how an organization like NOS has become more and more able to really build trust with the fishing community. And it was a very moving story because it reminded us all that the restoration of critical fisheries, you might say the restoration of all the different aspects of our ecology that are really stressed, will be driven by beauty and love, and people really feeling this deep desire to conserve their connection and the quality of the relationship between the humans and the natural world. So that's really central to the work of the Academy. The Academy is really about how do we understand how systemic change will occur, particularly at a scale that really matters. And one of the areas we've been particularly interested in are fisheries, because they're a perfect example of the economic, biological, and social, and how they all have to come together. And that if they can, there can be real benefits, not in 100 years, but in 10 years. So the way the lagoon and the bay are starting to restore, and how the clam population is now starting to come back. These are the kind of stories of encouragement that everybody in the world needs. We all know all the problems, and everything is kind of deteriorating everywhere. We really need a sense of hope that things can be reversed. And that's why I think what's happening here is a wonderful example. It could really inspire a lot of people. So this is always about opening the heart and tapping the real deep caring. People forget that, and Again, there's a lot of despair in the world and a lot of negativism, and we forget that human beings have another aspect of us, which is we care very deeply if we feel connected and if we feel there's others with us and we're not all by ourselves. So I really think Nos is a wonderful example of a lot of what is really needed in the world and could really help people understand what's needed. I think what impacts me the most in the community is what always impacts me most in the community is the people who live here, people whose parents and whose families have lived here, the people who have lived through a decline, but they're still here. And they would love to be part of a recovery, and maybe even something that's even better than it was before. Because they have a real sense of what we would call stewardship. That's the only word in English that really describes this connection that people get to land, to sea, where they feel a real responsibility for it. So what moves me most is watching that capacity for stewardship be restored in the community, which means you can also then start to restore it in the larger natural system. I think empathy takes time to build, because empathy is based on understanding, right? Yeah, that means I have an understanding of your situation, and it's not just an intellectual understanding. I can really feel it. But for it to have impact, it needs to be perceived. Because I might feel it, but people are still too distrusting, so they don't understand that you feel that. So it just takes time. And it really is transformative. Another way to say all of this is that what transforms systems is transforming relationships. Because it's the human beings who live in a system who make it work the way it works. So we always say it's one of the great ironies, and very rarely really understood, that the transformation of any complex system is an inside job. It requires people opening their hearts, and it always comes down to transforming relationships, from distrust to trust, from distance to feeling close, from not understanding to understanding. And of course, a good way to characterize all that is, you might say, mutual empathy. We had to be, on the one hand, fearful, because obviously there's many dangers, but on the other hand, loving. So the ability to be both loving and fearful and hold both of them simultaneously in a sense of profound mystery. It's much bigger than us. This is much, much bigger than any of us. That's a sense of enchantment. And I think without it, we have no way to live. Because we are Mother Earth. We are an expression of life on this planet. And we have to feel part of that very deeply. And that's not just an intellectual thing. That's a complete experience, physical, emotional, and intellectual. And that's, of course, what the Way of Nature has been doing for a very long time. It's the reason we've been in partnership with John Milton and the Way of Nature for 15 years. And it's one of the very special things about right here in El Mangle is the way the fishing community, Nos, and the Way of Nature have been gradually blending. But I think that's the organizations. But the real story is we have to get reconnected. Until we're really reconnected with Mother Earth, our connections with one another will always be less than they could be.
For communities who are struggling to bring about change, one is the ability to have real and authentic conversation, to be able to have the courage to speak up, to express what you might be feeling in your heart, but your head is saying, no, this isn't the time to share that. So creating, we use the term creating a container. It's about creating the space where people are comfortable to take risk, where people are comfortable to express what really matters, including what they disagree with, what they're angry about. If you can't have a space where people dissent and to argue, then it's not really an authentic space or an authentic place. I think it's really important that people, when bringing about change in a community, are willing to make commitments. And I distinguish between commitment as a promise that I make independent of a return versus a commitment that I make based on an expectation that I'm going to get something back. They're two very different ways of thinking about it. And true change happens in a community, in my experience, when people are prepared to make commitments or promises, regardless of what they get back. Extremely important that people are able to have conversation about possibility. What's the possibility that we see together in this community? What is it that I am frustrated about? What is it that I don't agree with? I refer to that as a dissent conversation. What is my ownership in this? What is it that I am doing that might actually be perpetuating the situation that I complain about? And finally, what is my commitment to bringing about and supporting the change that I want to see? If we are able to create the places where people have those kinds of conversations in deep and meaningful ways, it doesn't guarantee that we will be able to create the future that we want together. It does, in my experience, raise the possibility of co-creating a future if we're able to have those kinds of conversations.
So, if you have that kind of a motivation, your capacity to begin to respond to how you fish and how you live sustainably in terms of the resources that you have around you in nature. You look on those resources not as just objects that you manipulate, but they're, or something that's a cash thing. But you look on it more like you're part of a vast community, and you have a responsibility to live in harmony and in balance with that community. And if you love nature and you love the nature of that community, then you're going to establish relationships that are based upon balance and harmony and respect. And you develop economic systems that reflect that. So we need to learn those lessons all over again and come back into that kind of relationship. So NOS can do that, can help to birth that back into words where there are gaps in that kind of awareness or that kind of relationship. NOS can help to birth that re-relationship process of coming back into establishing even deeper natural connections to nature, not just based on the manipulation of nature, but very deep feeling of connection, communion, and powerful oneness with the rest of life. So the work here, I think, is it's already underway, and certainly the Academy, the Way of Nature, El Mangle are all playing roles in helping that to birth, supporting that birth process. But I think through that, the implications are very, very powerful and could extend out into many other areas around the planet. It's very, very exciting, actually. Very hopeful.